You tried to raise Mica from the dead, and I believe at another point you said you laid next to her body in the morgue. Is that true?
I sat on the floor, next to her and just talked to her for a while. But yeah, I tried raising her from the dead. Because you know what? If it had worked, we'd have a whole different story. But God forbid me not try it and always wonder the rest of my life, would it have worked? Right? Jesus did it. Elisha did it. There's a few other people in the Bible. And so,
I don't know how many times J.P. Miller lied during his recent slew of shocking interviews. But after comparing his claims with Mica's best friend and a mountain of evidence, he seems to have done nothing but dig himself deeper and show the world who he truly is. My name is Mandy Matney. This is True Sunlight, a podcast exposing crime and corruption previously known as the Murdaugh Murders Podcast. True Sunlight is a Luna Shark production written with journalist Liz Farrell. Okay, let's go back to where this all started. JP's strange TikTok videos. These smarmy little drop-ins on True Crime Marie's page, where he first told us all that he had more than 300 pieces of evidence showing who was to blame for Mica's death. Those TikTok videos disappeared right before JP started appearing in more formal interview settings. Since then, JP has sat for an interview with the Myrtle Beach Sun News, WPDE news station in Myrtle Beach, and an interview with reporter Rich McHugh on News Nation. And then there were 2 paid-to-listen recordings of a 2-hour interview that JP did with a TikToker named Flo Daddy. Welcome to True Crime Reporting in 2024. Also, let's not forget the impromptu but brief live interview that he did with Justin on TikTok about a month ago. I say all that to say, yeah, this man really has not shut up since Mica died.
Okay, now, if there's a theme to JP's interview, it's this, and it's not surprising, we've already talked about it. JP contends that Mica had a long history of psychotic episodes and of going on and off her medication, and that he was the only one who cared. In his interview with TikTok user Justin on TikTok a month ago, JP said that he had spoken with 48 people, some dozens of times, trying to get help for Mica. He said no one would listen to him. So let's talk about that. We've told you all before about how JP went to probate court in March to have Mica involuntarily committed, and that the court found no reason to do so. According to JP's interview on News Nation, he said that Mica was in and out of the court during her commitment hearing in 3 minutes. He said afterward they told him that Mica was mentally ill and desperately needed to be medicated, but that because she wasn't a harm to herself or others, there was nothing the state could do. According to Mica's best friend, Charlotte Korn, who we spoke to this week, Mica wasn't off her medication at that time. Again, at the time of Mica's death, she appears to have only been prescribed a strong antihistamine to counter anxiety, according to the medical examiner's report. The report listed no other prescriptions, nor did it mention that she hadn't been taking her meds, which, again, this is a report that was building its case for why they believed her death to be a suicide. If there's anywhere you're going to put those details, it would be in that report. Also, to be clear, the medicine that JP says she was supposed to be on is lithium, which he told Flo Daddy, quote, literally takes the idea of suicide out of your head, which is not what doctors say lithium does, by the way. Flo Daddy asked him point blank, what medicines was Mica supposed to be taking at the time of her death? And that's the one JP named, while also vaguely mentioning other drugs for schizophrenia. Beyond that, JP has not yet publicly produced any official documentation that we know of anyway. Mica's family has not spoken specifically about the Flo Daddy interviews, but they've denied JP's version of events, and they maintain that Mica was mentally healthy, but for JP. They also maintain that JP was giving Mica his own prescriptions and that he was engaging in long-term mental abuse through coercive control. Speaking of that, we checked in with Mica's best friend Charlotte on how this looked to her, because here's the thing about coercive control. victims of it can very much look like they're fine with behaviors that otherwise seem disturbing to those in their lives.
I don't know if there's one specific memory or anything that I would point to, but just in general, their relationship, because there were so many things that she would say that I'm thinking, oh gosh, I would not like that at all, like staying in bed or some intimate details that I've been told, and just how very, controlling he was of her time and what they ate or what she wore and all that.
Charlotte was one of Mica's closest friends in the years leading up to Mica's death. They were as close to sisters as you could get, Charlotte said. When it became clear that Mica's marital issues were serious, Charlotte would offer firm but gentle pieces of advice to Mica, to let her know that her reality was confirmed and to offer her unconditional support.
The fact that he's trying to point the finger of control to other people or blame them for, how she handled life is just a total just absurdity. It'd honestly be laughable if it wasn't so ridiculous. He said, she was afraid of me sometimes and I was controlling to her. Mica was one of the most strong-willed people I've ever known. The fact that he continues to belittle her by portraying her as this kind of mental weakling is just absurd.
That's the story he wants us to believe. That's the story he wants us to think is true, when from where all of us sit, it looks like a man who is coming undone because his young, beautiful, once malleable, once controllable wife had made up her mind and was doing everything she could to get away from him. In another instance in which a video exists, this time a video that JP took, JP talks about a time when Mica was allegedly in one of her psychotic episodes.
Mica, stop. Calm down, Mica, stop. Stop. I don't have your purse. Stop. You don't have my purse? Nope. Stop, Mica. Please. Stop, Mica, stop. Stop. I don't have your purse.
And I locked the door. And thought, okay, dear God, I'm trying to text a friend of mine who's a police officer and saying, what do I do? I just need help. I don't want to get in trouble and all this. And so she thinks that I stole her pocketbook or her makeup or something. And she's kicking the door. She kicked the hole in the door. And then, I don't know what happened that night. I think I left and came back and she got back in her meds or whatever.
So, according to JP, this incident wasn't about him hiding Mica's belongings as it would seem. So instead, a video of Mica in a psychotic state and him being the victim. Note that in the video, we do not hear him using calming techniques that one would expect to hear when a caregiver is trying to de-escalate an outburst. Note that we said her demeanor, other than when she appears to use her body to force the door open, and open it slightly, by the way, was calm. At no point does he mention her meds in the video that we saw, nor does he say anything that would indicate that he was dealing with someone in mental distress. Instead, the video we saw appears to be that of an irritated wife who is sick of game playing. And that is exactly what he is doing in these interviews. Game playing. It is hours of him doing this. Hours of him casually tearing down Mica and her family while contradicting himself over and over and over. But we're glad that he did it. We have long suspected that JP's interpretation of Mica being off her meds correlated with her not being the controllable wife JP thought that he was getting. There is a lot more to comb through with these interviews, especially when it comes to filling out and understanding the timeline. A lot of things clicked into place when we spoke to Charlotte this week. We will get back to all of that next week. Stay tuned, stay pesky, and stay in the sunlight.